The UN observer mission is leaving Syria at a time when they are sorely needed. Still, the UN says a small force is staying behind. But will that really have an impact? I asked that question of Lori Handrahan, a lecturer at American University. She's also served as a United Nations consultant. She's not very optimistic about the future.
Well, there's not really going to be a unit or a contingency. There's going to be a liaison office. So a liaison office, typically with the UN, is one person, maybe in a hotel room. I mean, they're not going to be effective at all. There's basically going to be no UN presence. It's name only, really. I mean.
Let me get your thoughts on something that happened today. On Sunday, we heard from the man heading the UN supervision mission in Syria. I want you to listen to what he says about the previous ceasefire agreement.
By the middle of June, it was clear that the parties were no longer committed to the ceasefire. The result has been escalation in violence.
So let me ask you this. He says that both of these parties were committed not to commit to the ceasefire. Do you think things will change now?
Well, again,
and what do you think of what he had to say?
I mean, it's political rhetoric. It's false remarks. It's not as if there are two equal parties fighting a civil war. I know it's been labeled that, but it's simply not true. There is a government who's using the vast resources of their military, and it's a state military that's a very powerful state military, against its civilian population. I mean, the freedom fighters, so-called Free Syrian Army, it's largely a bunch of civilians trying to defend themselves, right, against airplanes dropping bombs on their cities. So clearly the U.S. isn't going to intervene. I mean, President Obama has made it very clear that nothing's going to happen, at least until the elections. So therefore, you do have a major humanitarian crisis right now, and therefore you do need to put the focus on donations from governments, from individuals to UNHCR to help the people who have gotten out. There's nothing worse than being a refugee. I don't know if you've ever been in refugee camps or ever worked in refugee camps, but you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. I mean, these are people just like you and I, mothers, children, fathers, sons, grandparents who have lost everything and have fled with only the clothes on their back. Most of their relatives have been killed. They've lost their homes, everything, and now they're living at the mercy of a host government. So it's really important to support the work of UNHCR.
Let me ask you this. We continue to hear from China and Russia that they feel diplomacy is the only way out and a long-term solution in the area itself. China's been hosting a recent series of meetings with Assad's envoy. They say that they've also extended the same invitation to the other side, trying to cobble together some type of diplomatic solution. How do you think a diplomatic solution might come about? What would it look like, and is that a possibility?
Diplomacy is dead as long as Assad continues the slaughter of his own people. And it's Assad's responsibility to end that slaughter. So I don't know how you have diplomacy with a regime that's hell-bent on destroying their own people, which Assad has shown to the world that he is.
Our thanks to Lori Handrahan for that. It's a conversation which will certainly continue.